Okay, so it's a pleasure to have you here on our next session of our webinars, Data Rise Growth. My name is Bartek, and I will run today's meeting. And I have guests from our company, another Bartek. It's coincidence this time. Anyway, another Bartek who is our senior analyst, and I'm more than sure that he will run today through all of the examples of how to prepare your company for the AI evolution, not the revolution, because revolution mainly hurts our budgets. So why we organize this kind of the event, why we are organizing this kind of the webinars, because mainly we are doing that for a lot of companies from different sectors like e-commerce, like QSRs, restaurants, also the MPLs, also the financial sector, a math sector, and so on and so on. But all of those customers who are coming to us, they've got one simple question. So where to start? And behind this question, there is a couple of threads. I would name three of them. So the very first is what kind of the direction we should choose. So where we should go with the AI, where to start, how we should start with it, because there is a lot of rumor on the market, especially when the model's changing month to month. Yeah. We've got also the new model from Anthropic, for instance. And we'll do not talk about it today. So we'll do not talk about the individual users, but more like how to prepare the organization. So this is the very first threat that we see. So where to start inside of the organization? That affects three things. The very first big threat is that we will burn budget. We'll burn budget because we'll spend a lot of money on tokens, because we'll buy some tools that may it be they will not more or less help us or not in the future. Or, for instance, the models of these tools will change in time as well, like, you know, pricing not by the seat, but by the usage. And that might extremely hurt our budgets. And behind all of those threats is also that the biggest threat, I believe, and the biggest threat also from our customers. Okay, so if we will implement the AI in our organization in different fields, for instance, the finances, the sales, the marketing, the food, for instance, or any other. So what will be the outcome? Our people will use it or not? And a lot of the organizations, they are afraid that unfortunately, our people will not use all of the possibilities of the AI, and mainly because they do not have trust in the outcome. So they do not have trust in the data. There is a couple of reasons that I'm more than sure Bartek today will discuss with us, and we'll show you how to prepare your organization, not only from the data perspective, but also the processes perspective, to be ready for the AI, how to start with data quality, and then move to the AI preparations. Mainly, we'll talk about threats at the very beginning, but I'm more than sure that Bartek will be the best person to present you more what we have on the table today. So, Bartek, the floor is yours. Just one thing before we'll start to all of you. If you want to ask any question, do not hesitate. You can do that. You can write on the chat your questions. From time to time, I will stop Bartek also. I will pick questions and put it on the plate. If not, we'll answer at the end of today's meeting. And one more thing, this is our also approach to all of the webinars. If the question will be too wide to answer in a couple of sentences, we'll send you back individually the response. So feel free to ask any question you want during our webinar. The floor is our senior analyst who went through all of the threads and how to prepare your organization, how to prepare your data for the AI in the future. Bartek, please.
Okay, so thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. Okay, just give me a second. Yeah, okay. So let's start with agenda for today's meeting. We'll talk about why AI projects fail, because they do fail, and you'll see some data related to it. Then we'll touch on data quality, and operational depth in terms of implementation of AI, why this is very important, and what can you do about that. Next, we'll discuss some qualities of 6 dimensions of data quality with some real examples to show you how it works in reality in your business. And then we'll give you some tips on how to approach AI projects the right way, not the hard way. So I think the first slide is kind of self-explanatory. The pressure to implement something with AI is real. So I think this is the reason why most of you joined today. So I think everything is clear with that. So yeah, let's focus now a little bit on numbers, as we discussed at the beginning. Over 80% of AI projects fail. That's twice the rate of regular IT projects. Less than half make it to production. And here, the technology, it's not the problem. The preparation is. And these numbers come from companies with dedicated data teams, large budgets, entire departments focus on AI. And if they are struggling at this rate, what happens when a company of 200 people jumps in without preparation? So why does this keep happening? Why are so many projects failing? The answer is data readiness. Over half of organizations say data quality is their single biggest barrier to AI adoption. And only 12% believe their data is actually good enough to use. That means 9 out of 10 companies roughly are building on a foundation that is not ready, and most do not find out until after they've spent the money. And without that foundation, everything built on top of it, every pilot, every vendor integration, every AI initiative is at risk. So before we go deeper, let's do a quick temperature check. I've got a question for you, and please be honest, nobody's grading this. Okay, just give me a second because we'll do a live poll. Okay.
In the meanwhile, I will tell you the spoiler, or I will not. I will add it at the end. So
Okay.
we already started the voting 2 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and we've got some very first results. But we are very, curious about the results from this webinar. So how you feel? So please vote.
Yeah, so the question is, if you deployed a production-grade AI agent today, how much do you trust your current data to feed it without human babysitting? So by production-grade AI agent, we mean something that you will use in reality in your company to your day-to-day processes. So the first option is A, I would trust it with my life. B, I would trust it, but I would check them off twice. C, I would expect it to hallucinate immediately. D, we don't even know where the data is stored.
And I can suggest that for now, when we have 16 voters from this audience, so 21 voters, so the results, they are very similar to what we achieved during our online voting in the last 2 weeks. So mainly is B and C as the answer. So nobody would trust it with your life. And here's the big question mark, why? And this question mark, it came in every single company. And we saw that also during our talks with our customers, that their teams, they did not trust. They did not trust totally in what AI generates. And why? I am more than sure that we'll move forward with Bartek soon.
Yeah, we'll discuss it in detail later, but for now, the key point here is the lack of trust. It's in your data. It's not a technology problem. It's not something a better AI model will fix. It's a structural problem. And it's exactly what we need to diagnose before any AI implementation makes sense. So why do so many projects fail if the technology actually works? Because the technology isn't the problem. 85% of AI models fail due to poor data quality or missing data. Not bad algorithms, bad data. The bottleneck was never the model. It's the environment you deploy it into. And here's something that surprises most people. Bad data is already costing you before any AI is involved. Gartner puts the average at 12.9 million US dollars a year. And in almost all high stakes AI projects, one data problem cascades into the next. Wrong reports, flow outputs, costly rework. For a company with only 100 people, you might not be losing millions, but you might be making the wrong call on a key client, a key hire, a key investment, because the data behind that decision wasn't reliable. Or you can be spending 2 weeks a month manually reconciling reports that should be automated, but can't be because the underlying data doesn't match. AI doesn't create this problem, it accelerates it.
And I would add one more thing maybe there, because the very big numbers that we've got from the Gartner, as Bartek mentioned, they're very general. They're for the enterprises. We are working mainly with the companies where the back office is up to 1,000, sometimes 2,000 people, sometimes 160, 50, 25, seriously different sizes. But the problem, take into account all of those risks and the spendings, we see the problem, of course, proportionally to each customer. So we see that at the very beginning of our talks with those customers, that the problem of the burning this amount of money really happens. And that's why we thought, okay, let's do something like more educating. Why not prevent someone else from losing money and time? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Research across multiple studies shows a consistent pattern. Companies that succeed with AI invest roughly 70% of their AI resources into people and process work, workflow integration, data preparation, training, change management. About 20% goes to the technology stack and only around 10% to algorithm selection. Failed projects flip this completely. They pour most of the budget into tools and models and leave data quality and process alignment unresolved. For a company your size, this is actually good news. The most important investment aren't about buying expensive platforms. They are about getting your data in order, standardizing your definitions, and making sure your processes are documented well enough for AI to work with. And those are things you can start before you spend a single zloty or euro on AI, and they will deliver value even if you never deploy a model. And let me give you a way to think about this, especially useful when you're explaining it to a board or leadership team without a technical background. AI is an engine, and like any engine, its performance is strictly limited by the quality of its fuel. The fuel, in this case, is your data. The engine itself, the AI model, the algorithm, it's usually not the problem. The engines today are very good. GPT, Claude, Gemini, specialized predictive models, they work. But the fuel is almost never ready. In most organizations, and especially in companies your size, data is scattered across disconnected systems. Your customer database has one version of truth, your finance system has another, your sales streams tracks things in spreadsheets, your operations team has a different set of numbers. And that data is full of wrong entries, gaps, and data that looks different from system to system. Not because anyone did anything wrong, it's just raw. It hasn't been refined.
I would add one more thing that many companies we are seeing also that, and we want to prevent, and when you're doing the analysis inside of those companies, we see that a lot of people they are trying to paper over the cracks inside of the processes because of the lack of time, because it was no place and time to communicate between different departments, like the finances and the sales, and the number from sales and the finances they differs, and we saw that in many companies, and the definitions differs as well. And then we have the wrong results in the end. And in case of this funnel, so let's imagine Lamborghini. I'm more than sure that nobody of you here would, use 90 octane, fuel to the Lamborghini. You will destroy your engine. Super expensive. And to be honest, AI looks like it's very easy, it's very cheap at the very beginning when we are using the ChatGPT or Gemini for our own. But we know that, of course, and our customer knows that the correct usage of AI might be not so expensive, and we are helping to do that way. But if we are using that in the wrong way with very poor data as well, so I'm so sorry, your engine might be broken, your Lamborghini might not run. And what is even more, we are helping customers also when we are discussing at the very first stage. So let's talk about definitions. Let's talk about the processes between departments. Let's find out the gaps, as Bartek mentioned. And then do not paper over the cracks. Just eliminate them. Yeah. And we are also always discussing do the very first step, which is mainly the process part, the data part, the definition part, and the work inside of departments, instead of putting the tool that should solve the problems or building the tool from scratch. So step up, step back, and look at the bigger picture.
And Bartek, you're actually right. Because if we use a bad fuel into a good engine, it will sometimes not only work just less well, it will break in specific, predictable ways. And we'll just tell you what they are. So the first is overfitting. This is when a model memorizes the past instead of learning from it. Think of a student who memorizes last year's exam answers word for word, and then fails the moment this year's questions are phrased slightly differently. That's overfitting. In practice, it looks like a sales demand forecast that perfectly matches last sales data, but completely misses this quarter's trends. It remembered the past, it just couldn't learn from it. The second is edge-case blindness. This is when the model handles 90% of standard cases just fine, but makes serious errors on the cases that matter most. You can think of a, let's say, spell checker that works perfectly for everyday words, but doesn't recognize the name of your biggest client. The unusual situations are exactly where you most need accuracy, and there's exactly where the model breaks down. The third, and this is the one that burns the most budget, is training serving skew. This is when the model works perfectly in testing, but falls apart when used for real. Think of a chef who perfects a recipe using the finest ingredients, then serves it in a restaurant where half the ingredients are missing or substituted. Same recipe, completely different result. In practice, in the data scientist's lab, every record was clean and complete. In production, 30% of customer profiles are missing key fields. The model was never prepared for that reality. You wouldn't put dirty fuel into a Ferrari and blame the engine when it stalls. But that's exactly what most companies do with AI.
Okay, so I'm thinking that we have another pool, isn't we?
No.
No, not this
It's
time.
No, it's time
I
to
thought it
think.
will be.
It's time to think. So If you're sitting there thinking, this sounds exactly like our company, good. That means you're being honest. And let me be clear. This is normal and this is fixable.
I'm not quite sure how it resonates with others, but for me personally, resonates the very first one. So CRM, of course, and when we are talking about the sales and marketing data. To be honest, I'm not quite sure if there is the CRM, which is, fully filled in 100%. So yes, from time to time, we are also losing for instance, we are losing the trust in the CRM. What means also we are building the trust when we are filling in the data and when we are using it as the single source of truth. So I'm more than sure that we can do that also with other tools and other examples.
Yeah, actually, this is not a failure. This is how most growing companies operate. You build these systems to serve the business, and they did. But it means one thing. Before you build anything with AI, you need to understand what you're actually working with, because AI can't fill in the gaps you don't know you have. It will run on whatever you feed in and give you confident sounding answers based on incomplete or inconsistent data. So, if you never sat down as a company and agreed on what active client actually means or lead time on conversion rate, AI will not resolve it for you.
What is even more in this point number 4, which you have a data in 5 system that they don't talk to each other. We also heard from our customers, but also we heard from potential customers from also other companies that are working very closely around the AI implementation in the companies. And one of the biggest right now challenges for the companies also to move from the model where the human talks with AI to receive the final value, which will be shared with another human. It's very basic usage of the AI, for instance. And here, this point number 5 means like you have data in 5 systems that don't talk to each other. So which means that in the final perspective, it should be like the AI is able to talk with your, for instance, data warehouse, is able to talk with other systems and give the final result, even without your question, just as a, for instance, proposition for you, some offer, something extra. So thanks to that, all of this thinking stuff is also out of your scope.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, this is something Bartek mentioned a little bit previously, but there is another layer to this problem that goes beyond data quality, and we call it operational debt. Operational debt is the gap between what your processes look like on paper and how they actually run in practice. Every company has it. The workarounds, the manual steps that should be automated but aren't. The things everyone just knows, but nobody has ever written down. Inefficient? Maybe. But functional? Until you introduce AI. Because AI doesn't close the gap. It exposes it. It takes whatever you've got and runs it faster, at scale, with confidence. And if what you've got is held together with a duct tape, you now have a very fast, very confident mess. This is the pattern we see again and again. The AI works perfectly in isolation. The model does exactly what it was built to do, but the operation around it can't absorb the results. Output gets ignored. Teams override the recommendations, or even worse, they trust them and the errors compound. That's operational debt. And just like financial debt, the longer you leave it unaddressed, the more expensive it gets.
I'm more than sure it's close also to what we so-called, we have something like also technical debt in many companies, like SaaS companies and so on and so on. So I'm more than sure that most of the people that they're here, they truly understand what does it mean. However, it's always good to remind ourselves, like, if you're not doing something from the day number 1 properly, So it will cost you a lot to fix it. And there is also this is another place when we can burn our budget on AI. If we are not doing and we are not starting early enough, and today is early enough, still is early enough. So tomorrow, which means probably end of the year, it will be not too late, but it might be too expensive for your company to start. Yeah, because it will be too many angles to cover at once.
Yeah, exactly. Later we'll show you some tips and best practices how to approach it actually. And yeah, we talked a little bit in theory, but now let's me give you a concrete example. And I want you to pay attention because this is the scariest kind of failure. Not because something crashed, because nothing crashed. A restaurant group, 30 locations, AI-powered demand forecasting and staff scheduling. The model runs every night, pulls transaction data from all POS systems, and by the morning, the manager has a shift plan for the week. The team trusts it. It's part of the routine. 11 days ago, one location had a quiet network change. Nothing dramatic. But that POS stopped sending data to the pipeline. No alert, no error. The dashboard still looks normal. The model doesn't know the data is missing. It falls back on historical averages, sees that this location is typically quiet on Saturdays in October, and recommends a light shift. What it doesn't know, because it was never told, because it wasn't in the feed, is that this location has a catering booking for 50 guests that Saturday. The manager follows the plan, 4 people short. The kitchen falls behind by the second course. Guests complain. The client asks for the partial refund. The model was running perfectly. It just hadn't received a full picture for 11 days. And nobody noticed because the dashboard showed predictions, not data health. This is operational depth meeting data quality. The AI wasn't the problem. The infrastructure feeding it was broken silently, and nobody had a process to catch it. No monitoring, no data quality checks, no alert when a source goes quiet. Before you trust the output, you need to trust the input.
Yeah, so it's like with this quotation that we should not quote it on the webinar public, but let's use it in a very, I would say, easygoing way. So if you're putting garbage in, you've got the garbage out. And I am more than sure that patch every single part. It's not only about the AI, it's about everything in the organization around the data and the processes that we are organizing. It's also about our organization and every other. So being prepared for any change you're doing, you have to be aware that you have to put some data. And the systems and the people as well, they will do not work just on their own without good instructions, how to fill in something, without good data about the cost, about the project, about the, for instance, recipes depends on the customer. Also e-commerce, without good data about how much you're selling, when and where, and in what time, you cannot predict the future, even if you have a lot of tools that you can implement. We used to have also the great webinar about the prediction based on Fabric, for instance, and the Power BI. And there is also the new functionality inside of the Fabric that we will promote soon also that helps you gather the information easily with AI, but still you need this information, you need this data clear inside of your systems, inside of your Excels, no matter where you're starting with data warehouse or just with AMS 365 licenses, you can start on the very early base with preparation of your data for the AI, for the processes, and for the change in the future.
And we have another example. and I want you to think about whether something similar has ever happened in your company. If you have this kind of example, please write it in the comment section. A mid-sized logistics company, 60 vehicles, they deploy route optimization AI, pick a good vendor, integrate it with their dispatch system. The model calculates the optimal route for every delivery, every time. Sounds great, right? Except the dispatch process is still manual. Dispatchers assign routes based on experience, intuition, and personal relationships with drivers. And the drivers? They routinely ignore the recommendations because, in their words, the system doesn't know this route is always jammed at 3 p.m. Or client X want their delivery before lunch, not after. The AI calculates the optimal route every single time. The operation still fails. Not because the technology is wrong, because the process around it was never fixed. This happens to a 30 truck companies just as easy as 3,000 truck companies. The AI works. The operation doesn't absorb the output. And here's the dangerous part. AI won't fix the gaps in your processes. It will expose them at the worst possible moment under the pressure of a failing, expensive implementation. This is what we call the GenAI paradox. The technology is advancing faster than ever, but the productivity gains are coming much slower than anyone expected. Not because the technology doesn't work, but because the organizational readiness isn't keeping up. Operational debt is compounding faster than AI can deliver value. The gap between the technology and what organizations can actually absorb, that gap is growing. And this is exactly why we believe the first question isn't which AI tool should we buy. The first question is, are our data processes ready to absorb what AI delivers? That's what we are going to tackle next. But before we do that, we have another poll, another question for you. Okay, you should be able to see it now. Does your organization have standardized KPI? KPI means key performance indicator definitions that are consistent across all departments. Yes, fully documented and consistent. Partially, some KPIs are standardized, others aren't. C, no, different teams define the same metrics differently. And D, I'm not sure.
We have 15 answers and 67% already that partially. I'm more than sure that it really reflects where we are today in most of the companies. So there is kind of the depth that we'll have to always take a look at, and it's like, as Bartek mentioned, consistency. So consistency in action and a consistent work around. The question is where we should start and how we should be consistent and how we should work around the data inside of our organization every single day, every single week, every single month and year to give the final results, which are moving our organization to be more profitable, to be more predictable and powerful at the end.
Yeah, if you think about your key metrics like revenue, churn, lead time, margin, client satisfaction, if I ask two different department heads to define any of those terms right now, would they give me the same answer? I think no, and I think the results of our poll tells the same story. So, this is very common across every organization, but it matters enormously for AI because if your KPIs aren't defined consistently, any model you build will be optimizing for different things in different parts of your business. And this is not AI problem. That's a definition problem. And it's one of the first things we check in an AI readiness assessment, which is exactly what we want to go now. But to give you some more context in terms of the data quality, we've established that data quality is the root cause of most AI failures. But what does data quality actually mean? Because it's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot without anyone defining it. Here's the thing most people get wrong. Data isn't simply good or bad. It's fit or unfit for a specific purpose. Think about a supplier lead time field in your procurement system. When it says 14 days, your buyer knows that means 14 days if you order before Wednesday from the main warehouse, excluding the summer shutdown. But the AI model just sees 14 days. That's the gap. The same data, completely different level of usefulness, depending on who or what is reading it. The same dataset can be perfectly fine for a monthly management report, where a human reads it, applies context, and makes a judgment. But that same data can be completely insufficient for training a predictive model, where an algorithm takes every value at face with no context, no judgment, and no ability to say, that doesn't look right for me. This is why the transition to AI is so hard. The bar for data quality goes up dramatically. What's good enough for human decision making is often nowhere near good enough for machine decision making. And this is why we say data quality is not an IT problem. It's a business discipline. Your head of IT can't fix it alone. It requires business owners who understand the data to define what good actually means for their specific use case. There are many ways to measure data quality, but 6 dimensions consistently rise to the top. There are the ones the industry keeps coming back to, and the ones we check in every assessment. Let me take them concrete, because in the abstract, they sound a little bit technical. In practice, they're very much business problems. So, accuracy. Does the data reflect what actually happened? Your CRM says a client was based in Warszawa, but they moved to Wrocław 2 years ago. Your model learns the wrong geography, targets the wrong region, and nobody questions it because the record looks fine. Completeness. Are all the values actually there? In many CRMs we've audited, 30–40% of records are missing critical fields. Industry, company size, contact role. If you're building a segmentation model or a lead scoring system, you've got a blind spot covering almost half of your client base. Consistency. This is the one we just polled about. When your sales team says active client, do they mean the same thing as your finance team? Sales might mean bought something in the last 6 months. Finance, on the other hand, might mean has an open contract. Both are valid. But if you train a model on data where these definitions are mixed, the model has no idea which active client it's optimizing for. Fourth one, timeliness. This is the one that catches people off guard. Your data might be accurate and complete, but if it's arriving too late, it's useless. If your inventory data refreshes weekly, but your forecasting model needs daily inputs, you're always making decisions based on last week's reality. Validity. This is about format and structure. Phone numbers stored as plain text, dates written 3 different ways across 3 different systems, postal codes that don't match any real location. The data exists. It's just in a form the model can't reliably use. And the last one, uniqueness. Are your records free of duplicates? The same client appearing 3 times in your CRM under slightly different names isn't just messy. It's a model problem. If that client churns, the model counts it as 3 departures instead of 1. Your churn rate is wrong because the model before the model ever runs. And now take a look at all 6 on the slide. I would bet at least 3, maybe 4 of these are relevant to your organization right now. The question isn't whether you have these problems. Most companies do. The question is, which ones will matter most for the specific AI use case you're planning to build?
And I would stop here for a second. So before, of course, we'll move forward. So if you're open, if you want to ask any questions, so please write it down on our chat. We can also answer in the meanwhile if we have some questions to what we already said, or if you have some thoughts about what you already saw on this slide. So we are open also to answer your questions or to go into conversation if that will be possible. If not, still, remember, after today's meeting, you can also leave us a question, you can sign up. There will be also the link, and you can take a part into our next step, which is the assessment that we prepared for you to check out how your organization is ready for the AI from the data perspective. So if you want to do that, please wait to the end of the webinar, and we will send it also to every attendee from today. Okay, let's move forward.
Thank you, Bartek, for reminding this, of course. Now, here's the good news for any company, but especially for smaller organizations without massive data teams. You don't need to perfect data everywhere. That would be actually impossible and, frankly, a waste of resources. What you need is fit-for-purpose data for the specific use case you want to pursue, and that's a much, much more achievable goal. Let me give you an example. Say you want to build a churn prediction model for our B2B clients. You don't need every dimension at 100% across every dataset in your company. You need to ask, for this specific model, do we have complete interactions history? Is our usage data current? Does everyone in the company agree on what churn actually means? Are our contract dates accurate? If you can answer those 4 questions honestly, you already know whether you're ready to build or whether you have some groundwork to do first. And that's exactly what a structured readiness assessment helps you do. Not grade your entire company, but diagnose the specific gaps that stand between you and a successful AI use case. Let me give you a HoReCa example, because this is an industry where the fit-for-purpose concept becomes very tangible. You run a restaurant chain, let's say 5 locations, and you want AI to predict daily demand so you can optimize ingredients, orders, and cut food waste. Great use case. High return on investment potential. Every restaurant owner knows the pain of throwing away food. But before you build anything, ask yourself 4 questions. First, does every location define waste the same way? In our experience, they usually don't. One chef counts prep trimmings, another doesn't. One location books staff meals as consumption, another as waste. If your model is trained on data where waste mean 5 different things across 5 locations, it's learning noise, not patterns. That's exactly how overfitting happens in practice. Second, do you actually track what goes in the bin? Most restaurants know exactly what they buy, but have almost no data on what they throw away. Without that, your model is flying half blind. Third one, are your recipe cards accurate? If the system says 200 grams of rice per portion, but the kitchen uses 280, every prediction starts with a 40% error baked in. And fourth one, if yesterday's data available before this morning's order? If purchasing happens at 6 a.m. and your post data doesn't close until end of day, there's a timing gap the model can't close. 4 questions, all data quality. None of them about the algorithm.
And they are coming from different angles, from different examples around our customers, so around not only the Europe, but also I would say the world. So it's not something which is outside of, I would say, industry knowledge. This is in the industry knowledge. So each time when we are also going deeper with the data, or we are trying to help the company prepare it for any process changes or to even implement some process changes and then move with the AI. So the question from those companies is, okay, so what is the market standard in our industry? So we are always just, this example shows also that we are working in with many companies also from Horeca, and we are trying always to evaluate everything with the market standards that it's already, for instance, in QSRs, let's say, or any other part of Horeca.
Yep, and we have a slightly different example. You run a boutique hotel group, 3 properties. You want AI to set room prices dynamically, adjusting rates every day based on demand, competition, and local events. Same exercise. Which dimensions matter? Timeliness. How fresh is your competitors' data? If you're checking the rates once a week, but they adjust daily, you're always pricing against last week's market. Completeness. Does the model know about local events, a trade fair, a concert, a major conference? These create demand spikes that historical data alone won't predict. If the event's calendar isn't feeding into the model, it will price a sold-out weekend like a normal Tuesday. That's edge case blindness in practice. The model works fine on ordinary days, but misses exactly the days that matter most for your revenue. Accuracy. Are your occupancy records correct? If cancellations and no-shows aren't logged properly, the model thinks certain days hit 95% occupancy when the real number was 78. It learns to price for demand that never actually showed up. Consistency. Does occupancy mean the same thing across all 3 properties? Does it include complementary upgrades? Maintenance blocks? Same pattern. 4 questions, all data quality. The algorithm is the easy part. So how do you figure out where you actually stand on these dimensions systematically? Let me show you what good enough to start looks like, because it's actually more achievable than most people expect. On data, you don't need a perfect warehouse or data platform. You need your key data sources in 1 or 2 centralized systems, even if they're not perfect. You need to know who's responsible for each major data set, and you need a basic sense of whether your data is complete and consistent. If those 3 things are true, you're further along than most. On people, you don't need a team of trained data scientists. You need at least 1 person who understands what AI can and can't do. Someone who can be the internal translator between the technology and the business. And your managers, and you need managers who are willing to adjust how they work based on what the AI recommends. If everyone says, I will look at the output, but I'm going to do it my way anyway, you have a readiness problem. On processes, your core workflows needs to be documented, not in a fancy tool. A shared document is fine, but if the only person who knows how your onboarding process works is Maria, and Maria is on vacation, AI can't help you with that process. And your KPIs needs to mean the same thing to everyone. If sales and finance still can't agree on what active client means, no model will reconcile that for you. The point is not perfection. The point is knowing where the gaps are before you spend money. Now, here's where a lot of companies make a critical mistake, and it's actually a very understandable one. They hear everything we've talked about today, data quality dimensions, the cost of getting it wrong, and they think, yeah, we need to fix all of our data across every system for every possible use case. Please don't do this. Trying to clean up your entire data estate is a budget burning trap. It's the data equivalent of renovating every room in your house at the same time. You'll run out of money, energy, and patience before you finish the kitchen. The smart approach, and this is what separates the 5% who succeed from the remaining 95, is to narrow your scope. Pick the 2 or 3 use cases with the highest value and the highest risk. Then ensure data quality only for the specific data that fits those use cases. If your most valuable AI opportunity is demand planning or churn prediction, you don't need to fix your HR data or your procurement data. You need to fix your client interaction data, your contract data, and your usage data. That's a much smaller, much more achievable project. Scope by value and risk. Fix what matters for the use case that matters. Everything else, it can wait. Let me put this in the simplest financial terms I can. There are 2 paths, path A, and this is the one we actually do not recommend. You invest in an AI tool or vendor first. You build, you deploy, and somewhere around month 6, you discover your data wasn't ready. Your KPI definitions don't match. Your production data looks nothing like your training data. You've spent the budget, you've committed the team, and now you're doing rework under pressure. With every week that passes, making it harder to stop. And there is path B, the one that we do recommend. You invest a fraction of that budget and a fraction of that time into a readiness assessment first. You find the gaps before you start building. You fix them when the cost is lowest and the pressure is lowest. Then you build on solid grounds. 4 to 6 weeks versus 6 to 12 months of pain. The successful ones verify before they build, not after.
And I would add one more thing here. Sometimes when we have a new customer who's coming to us, they're asking, okay, so not where to start, but we have a list of the, for instance, needs of our departments and what they want and how they want to implement AI in their daily basis work and so on and so on. Some ideas, of course, are brilliant, but in many cases, seriously, those people, they do not know where. They see some gaps and they say, okay, let's use AI to cover the gaps. And to be honest, in many cases, it's not needed. And when we are doing, for instance, the workshops, you can do that also on your own. But when we are doing the workshop with those customers, we are finding out the very quick wins that we can achieve in next weeks, sometimes in the same quarter, sometimes with AI, of course, sometimes just with the changes in the data and the processes. And sometimes because we are giving the space to coordinate between departments, their main points and their main problems. So the key point here is to see how we are ready. And if we are not pushing someone to say, okay, how you can use AI in your department, be honest, nobody is ready for this question. They might see the gaps, but they are not experts in an AI, and nobody asked them to be an expert, especially when these decisions might impact all the departments and might impact the whole business. So the key is to do good assessment first, to do not overinvest, and then to move the properly path. Path B, you can do on your own, even right now. You can do that with us, of course. We've got the market standards, and it will be way quicker. But everyone can achieve the path B. It's not impossible, it's possible. And path A is, I would say, short version. And as we know, the short version doesn't mean less money. So take a look at your data, take a look at your processes and problems inside of departments. This is our also guide for you after today's meeting. But before, I'm more than sure that Bartek can present a couple of more things. We know that we are over the time, but I'm more than sure it's a way more interesting.
Yeah, I would add one more thing to what you have just said, Bartek. Because of course we are here because of AI, but I want to emphasize that you should think about this assessment as an investment, because it will help you not only with AI, it will pay off immediately. This foundational work, aligning KPIs, assigning data ownership, documenting your core processes, this isn't just preparation for AI. It delivers business value on its own before any model is deployed. And just a few quick examples. When you align your KPI definitions across sales, finance, and operations, your reports become more accurate. Your monthly reviews becomes faster. You stop having arguments about whose numbers are right. We've actually seen companies shorten their board meeting preparation time by 30% just by agreeing on what revenue means. Second one, when you assign data ownership, you get clear accountability. Issues get resolved faster because anyone knows whose job it is. No more, I thought someone else was handling that data and I didn't do anything about it. When you document your three most critical processes, onboarding new employees become weeks faster. You reduce key person risk. You're not longer dependent on one person who knows how everything works. These are real business improvements. They happen in weeks, not months, and they pay for themselves, regardless of whether you ever deploy AI model. So this isn't a cost you endure on the way to AI. It's an investment that starts paying off immediately. So yeah, also think about this way. It will always help your business. This is the first start for AI, but it's also beneficial in different terms.
And I assume that when you're working with your customers, so you're starting also from this point, isn't it? So from this 3 points to do. So what you should fix, and you're starting from the to be aligned on the KPI definitions on the very first step, isn't you?
Yeah, actually, when we work with our clients or data analytics, building data warehouses, data platforms, this is always the start, because as we discussed previously, when you have 5, 6, sometimes 10 different systems in a company, one thing is that they need to talk to each other, and the second thing is they need to talk in the same language. So this is always the groundwork for any data project. And as we showed today, AI starts with the data. So we truly believe that this is the approach everyone should follow to get the highest value when working on this kind of projects. And as Bartek previously discussed, before we move on, I want you to leave you something you can use today. Every participant will receive a link to this self-assessment after the webinar. 10 questions across 3 areas we've been discussing: data quality, business alignment, and governance. Score your organization in maybe not 60 seconds, but few minutes, and you'll know exactly which zone you're in. Most companies land in the 8 to 14 point range. Proof of concept for AI is possible, but there is a groundwork to do first. It will actually tell you where to focus before you spend a single zloty or euro on AI. So we truly recommend you doing that.
And here we go. We've got the 3 points, isn't you? Can you just describe? So I'm more than sure that after all, when you will use and complete this AI data readiness survey, When you will take it via our QR code, and you will do that via link, so you can download. And what is even more, we can book the meeting, which is free of charge. We'll pay for it, and we can discuss with you this outcome from the survey. And the outcome from the survey we'll discuss during our meeting. It will be one-on-one, so it's free for everyone who attends today's meeting. It will be also in our after meeting follow-up that we'll send to all of you in the next couple of hours, and the second in a couple of days.
Yeah, so what we would like you to take away from today's webinar. First of all, AI projects do fail at very high rate. And usually the technology itself, it's not the problem. It's the environment, it's not ready. And the biggest bottleneck, if we talk about this environment, is data quality. I hope you will remember this analogy about AI as an engine and data as a fuel, and that dirty fuel breaks even best engines, but we can actually predict in what ways, usually very expensive ways, it will break. And we want you to actually assess your data readiness for AI implementation with a short checklist, short questionnaire we have prepared. And we want to underline once again, you don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to understand, define what should be your main focus, what is your highest value, highest risk use case with highest potential, and you should focus around the data quality for this specific use case. Of course, you can do it on your own with your own resources, but we are always here to help you. So here there are QR codes you can scan and you can reach to us, and we will try to help you. We'll try to use our expertise to solve your issues with being ready for AI implementation.
Yeah, and for those who are watching on LinkedIn, because I know that there is also the audience on LinkedIn, so we'll reach out to you personally also in the meeting. We'll send you over also in this invitation to the meeting. So on our LinkedIn, we'll send you also the survey. So each person which is there can go in, can fill in the survey and leave us the contact. And thanks to that, we can also give you this 1 hour of the consultations with us free of charge. So we'll pay for it just to make sure that your data is ready for the AI. At the same time, I believe that this is the end for today, isn't it, Bartek? So
yes,
I also
this is our
see...
last slide we've prepared for today. Yeah.
So we are so sorry for being over time, 7 minutes, and for everyone who stayed to the end. We are extremely honored to invite you to the next webinar where we will touch the new functionality inside of the Fabric. So it will be data agent. And what is even more, to everyone who attend this webinar, you will be able to receive for free in next week's the material where you can deploy it on your own. Anyway, so this is a small spoiler, more to be presented on our website, on LinkedIn, and also send you over via our newsletter. So please sign up for it, or we'll reach out to you after this webinar also with more information in next days and weeks. Thank you very much for today. I do not see any questions. If you have any questions, reach out to us directly, and see you in 2-3 weeks from now on next webinar.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.